What up, dudes? It's Gaz, and welcome back to the Warframe video. Today, we're doing a top 5 list. And this top 5 list is on weapons I think could deserve a Tenet or Corpus Lich sister upgrade. We're talking like the Tenet Arcaplasmor, things like that. Up in the stats, letting you choose a Kuva element and all that kind of stuff. We're going to go over some old, really old Corpus weapons that could definitely use an upgrade. We'll also briefly go over ones we know are coming. But before we get into it, and you want to keep track of all the videos and all that stuff, make sure you're subbed to the channel. A lot of people that watch videos aren't subbed. So yeah, make sure you sub. There will actually be more top 10 lists coming in the next couple of weeks, so keep an eye on that. We have some primary lists and stuff like that. Alright, so weapons that could use Tenet upgrades. Hopefully that makes enough sense to you. We'll be going over some really ancient weapons and just showing maybe these are weapons people still really like and could use some upgrades. That's pretty much the gist of today's video. And the gameplay is really laggy for some reason. Alright, so we're going to start from the top 5. I said the one that's like the least important, but these are all like weapons that definitely could use these upgrades. We're going to start with number 5, which is the Lanka. Yes, the Lanka is really, really ancient. This thing used to be the Eidolon meta before like people actually knew what was going on. So we got a charged sniper rifle here. So basically it's like a bow and a sniper mixed together. You can't fire off the shot until it's, I think it's going to be half charge or something like that. Base electric, and it's a projectile. The reason it's not meta for Eidolons anymore is because it's not hit scan, and people are using hit scan weapons nowadays. But yeah, quick shot is going to be 200 damage. Charge shot is over double the amount of damage. So pretty decent stats. You got 20% crit chance, 2x multiplier, 25% status chance. This thing just screams outdated to me. When you like compare it to like some of like the stuff that's currently meta for Eidos, we got Rubico Prime, which has slightly lower base damage, but about double the crit chance and, you know, 1.5 times crit multiplier as well. So this thing is a lot better in a lot of ways. And you can still get some pretty big elemental damage from a Lanka. It has decent Riven Dispo as well, but this thing could definitely use an upgrade. Since it's got base electric, getting a toxin roll would give you built-in corrosive. A heat roll would give you base radiation, which would be good for Eidolon fights. But I'm not sure what they'd actually end up doing to make people want to run it again, just because of the fact that it's projectile speed and not hit scan, which people like to use. So, yeah, an oldie, which people still might sometimes use as mag. It's pretty good with mag bubbles, but this is one that could definitely use a big upgrade. But the thing is here, like, do people still like the Lanka in 2022? Like, is it going to really be big and hype like some of these top weapons on this list are? I'm going to go ahead and say no. I don't think the Lanka is exciting enough or, like, really, like, nostalgic enough that people are going to be like, oh yeah, a Tenet Lich version for the Lanka, oh, I'm going to go farm that right now. No. I still think it would be nice just because the Lanka is like completely outdated. But yeah, let's move on to the next one. That's just one that might be useful in the future. If maybe we get like a infested gigantic world boss or something like that, making big corrosive damage could potentially be helpful. All right, we're going to move on to number 4. Now, number 4 is actually a little bit of an interesting one. I've actually got 2 weapons here. We've got the Sonic Core and the Static Core, which are both, I think they're both Corpus weapons, but they both have the word core in them. That's why they're both in the same line here. So the Static Core is actually a pretty decent AoE pistol, but it has a little bit outdated stats, I'd say, in my opinion. So what we're looking at here is we got a whole bunch of stuff. So we got radiation damage built in. It's got a charge shot. It's got a quick shot. And this thing is AoE. The more you charge it, the bigger AoE becomes. But basically just base radiation. And the crit and stats aren't too amazing. If you were to get a Lich version of this, it could potentially make some crazy elemental combos and be very nice for AoE nuking things down. The Sonic Core I don't think I have anymore. But this thing I think has a guaranteed impact proc. And it has, I think, 0% status chance or something hilarious like that. So this thing is definitely outdated. Could use a little bit, yeah, right there, 0% status chance. It's still proc stuff, I'm pretty sure, but this thing is mega outdated. These could be some nice AoE weapons. People like the Static Core, people like the Sonic Core. Getting some nice upgrades here would be pretty cool. So this is how the Static Core works. I actually really like the Static Core. That's with fire rate, and you charge it up, and it shoots a big explosion. So getting a nice buff on that, you know, me personally, this is my personal opinion. I think that the Tenet weapons are a lot less exciting than the Kuva weapons. Just because, like, I mean, the big boom stuff, the Kuva Ogress and the Kuva Tsar and all that, those are Kuva weapons. As far as big boom stuff, for the Tenet weapons, we got Envoy, which is a little bit, you know, some people really like it, but I haven't really been using it versus the Tsar and all that. We got the Plasmor, which is really nice, and we got the Tenet Tetra, which is, it's actually been nerfed at this point. It is really bad in energized missions. It doesn't work anymore, so... yeah, we need some more exciting, like, big AoE stuff for the Corpus weapons, I'd say. And the Sonic Core and the Static Core could be a good first step. But let's not forget about number 1 when we get there. All right, so going on to the top 3, the most 3 important weapons that should get lichified, if you ask me. And number 3 is going to be the Exergists. Now, the Exergist actually is really good already. It's not like it really needs a Tenet version. But like, if you start weighing it against like some of the most powerful weapons in the game, this thing's lack of crit can help hold it back a little bit. So we've got I got 3 or 4 videos of the Exergist on the channel. We got Impact Puncture / Radiation. It's a very high status chance, 36%, with a 8% crit chance and a 1-point ver multiplier, with 1 round in the magazine. So if I was to buff this, I'd say, of course, getting the Kuva Lich element with increased base damage would be nice. Give it some actual crit stats. Let's bump that up to like 25%. Give it a decent crit multiplier too, and figure some other stuff out to buff it. Because this thing is actually pretty fun to use. If you want to watch, if you use it with Zata's Whisper, like the Helmet ability from Zaku, it can do some really funny stuff. Even without that, like I have a gigantic 8-forma build on here, it's still really strong. Like cleaving through some enemies with no crit, you know, still a pretty big chunk on that guy. So imagine they made this thing a Tenet Lich version. This thing would be like probably like potential meta weapon for single target DPS. Not like we really have many uses for it anyway, but this is what I would really, really enjoy to see. Just because, like, you know, you saw like basically no crits there. A crit upgrade on this thing, that would be very nice. All right, so that's what I think a lot of people would agree with, because the Exergist is a beloved weapon, and you see a lot of the enemies carrying him around, but we have no crit. I mean, it's 8% crit. You could use Arcane Avenger and make it about 50% crit, but what if you could orange crit the Exergist? What if you could red crit the Exergist? How cool would that be? All right, moving on to the last 2. We got number 2 and number 1, and these are weapons that are still good. I mean, don't get me wrong. When I say the Amprax needs a Tenet upgrade version, that's not because the Amprax is bad. I mean, I have a God Roll River for the Amprax for a reason. I do like the Amprax a lot. But, honestly, I'd say the Vermisplicer is better than this thing nowadays. The Vermisplicer Primary, the crit chance is higher than the max crit Vermisplicer, better crit damage. We've got, now with the new Galvanized CO mods, like Condition Overload for guns, Vermisplicer has Impact Puncture / and Toxin, and the Amprax only has Electric. So the CO potential on the Amprax is terrible. You can't even get a purely viral HM build. You have to do a viral electric HM build. It's pretty good with the corrosive build, though, because it has the base electric. But yeah, this thing could use some nice little upgrades. Even just the Corpus Lich element thing, we could have base corrosive. We could have base radiation or something like that, and it could make this thing a complete monster. I think that the Tenet weapons, they could use some heavy hitters for sure to get added down the line. We have the orange crit buff, so don't take this as an actual test. But like the funny thing is, I don't think this is good enough. This is with a God Roll Riven and an orange crit buff. Or I guess it wasn't an orange crit buff, so I saw some yellow crits there, but this thing should be top tier, but it's not, in my opinion. That's a corrosive build, of course. I think the Amprax could use a nice little bump there. Maybe, up the base range, up the base crit chance, make it like it's a Vermisplicer, where if I'm running, let's take off the ribbon. Let's say if I'm running critical delay, I want to be over 100% crit chance, maybe like 110% crit chance. Maybe up the crit multiplier. I'd say the base range could be nice because you can get even more range from Sinister Reach. Maybe make some goofy thing where it can chain to double the amount of enemies it currently can chain to. They could really make it interesting, but that's the thing. They have to make it in the first place. So that's why it's number 2 on the list. And number 1, honestly, probably shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who has been playing the game for a long time. And it is... brace yourself, because it might be a little bit weird. You might have not even thought about this weapon in forever. Number 1 that we need a Corpus Lich version of is the lens. Yes, this thing, the original explosive bow, is mega outdated. Just looking at the stats right here, we've got pretty big AoE on the explosion of 7.2, 70% fall off. Now this thing has a weird thing where it has an embed delay. So you fire the rocket, I guess you call it, the explosive arrow off, with its gigantic 50% crit chance with only 2x multiplier and 5% status chance. You fire this thing off, it goes under the ground and then explodes briefly after. So there's actually, I think, 3 instances of damage from this thing, but it has such low status chance that it doesn't even matter that much. You will get some guaranteed cold procs, though, which is kind of nice. So that was pretty good right there, but I think that was all aspects of the damage proccing there. So, it can be better, it can be worse. This is the lens, though. Just overall, straight up, it's a slow weapon. It takes time for these arrows to explode. So some things they could do to make the lens, let's not beat around the bush here. The Brahma just dominates the lens all day long. Let's look at these stats real quick. We have less crit chance by a lot. You know, losing 50% on the Brahma, but the Brahma's damage. This isn't even going to be showing the Kuva Lich bonus. Let's see if we can actually compare these. So it's got 660 right here on the lens, and then let's look at my Brahma with a 60% roll. Let's look at the radiation one's a 60% roll. Without even taking into account the Kuva bonus, 60% additional damage, we're looking at 839 damage. So over 200 more damage than the lens. Let's take off all the mods so we can see what's going on here once everything's said and done. So with the elemental bonus from the Lich, we're looking at about 1,300 damage. Just to remind you, I think that's over double what we had on the lens. That's over double what we had on the lens. So let's start there, get the Lich bonus in there. Maybe remove the explosion delay. I know some people might like it, but it's a relic of a long gone era. This delay was added because of self-damage. Back in the day, you would blow yourself up with the lens a lot. Like, you'd fire this off, you'd cold proc yourself, you have to get out of there right away or you're dead. That's how the lens originally came out, but now it's just like, if you have prime sure-footed, you just spam it at your feet. Like, shooting your feet's actually better if you have prime sure-footed. And if you don't have prime sure-footed, you're just getting knocked over a bunch. It's like you're firing a marshmallow at the ground, and it like makes you bounce away. Like a trampoline launcher or something nowadays. This thing could use a big buff. Like I said, embed delay would be nice. I think the crit chance is fine. Like 50% base is nice, but of course, who's gonna complain about more crit chance? Yeah, it just could use some help. This is the most outdated of the list, I'd say. Besides the fact that Lanka is just pretty much worthless nowadays. Now, as far as weapons we do know are getting Lich upgrades, we have seen a leaked little thing on their dev stream of a Tenet Ferox. We're apparently supposed to get a new sniper rifle, and then there's been some brief mentions of a Tenet Fluctus, but that might just be a troll by the developers, to be honest. So let me know how you guys thought about my list down in the comments down below. Let me know if there's any weapon you feel like I forgot. Of course, there are certain secondaries I didn't really do, like the Arca Cisco. I think that thing's so boring. Do we even need an upgraded version of that? The Plinks, I bet some people might like that. I'm not a huge Plinks fan either. And of course, like, I'm not taking into account like things like the Ocucore, like, you know, hybrid sentient Corpus technology, Betacore, stuff like that. Although a Tenet Betacore would be really cool. Yeah, let me know what you guys think down below. Hopefully you found the video helpful. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one tomorrow. Peace, guys.